Good morning, River Park Church. Today I am thinking about our church's 70th anniversary, just 11 days away. We're celebrating on Sunday, September 25. And today we're looking back at God's faithfulness and looking forward to the future He has for us. The face of the church has changed a lot over the last 70 years, and what God has for us as a church and for His church in the West in general is very different from where we've been in the past. And so this morning I want to introduce what we're going to be talking about and what I'm thinking about this fall as we wonder about the changing face of the church. This morning we will look at cultural earthquakes. Maybe you've seen it before in the past. Maybe far away from home. Maybe you even witnessed one yourself. An earthquake hits a community. Buildings are toppled. People run into the streets. Some are even buried under the rubble. In the days and weeks that follow an earthquake, organizations like the Red Cross move in. And one of the things you notice is that there's one significant thing that people don't do after an earthquake. They don't go back into the buildings. The Red Cross or other organizations set up tents. They have emergency water and food brought in for people. They mediate and meet the needs of the community, the felt needs of the community, while they wait and test to see whether the buildings are safe to re-inhabit. Why am I talking about earthquakes? Because I want to suggest to you that as River Park stands on the edge of our 70th anniversary, that the past decade or two have been filled with cultural earthquakes. The ground hasn't literally been shaking under our feet at River Park Church, and yet people feel changes in society. People see brokenness in churches, moral failure of significant leaders in the West, in the Western churches. And because of that, they distrust the institutions. They aren't eager to go inside the buildings the way that they were before these earthquakes. And that's to name just one example. There are many, many more. God has been faithful to River Park Church in the past. All the way back in 1952 when we were started as First Christian Reformed Church of Calgary. We have pursued God's leading and been great, unworthy beneficiaries of God's blessing. God has led us to plant new churches. He's led us through seasons of huge growth and also through seasons of grief and shrinking. And now as God continues to lead us, in the midst of the uneven ground around us and the shaking sand that we find our feet stood in, I think one of the things that God is calling us to do is set up some tents. What does it look like for the future of River Park Church to meet the felt needs of our community? Not just in a one-off kind of way to set up some food, to set up some shelter and run away and wait for people to come, but to set up tents where we might dwell with the people who do not know God, the people who are perhaps marginally interested in God, and even especially people who wrestle with or wonder about the structural integrity of the institutional church. What does it look like to set up tents? Well, the Old Testament has a word for that, setting up a tent and dwelling with people, and the word is tabernacle. In the Old Testament, the word tabernacle is used as a verb, that God came and tabernacled with His people. He came, they set up a tent, He dwelled with them. He remained with them for a long time, and He led them through the wilderness until He was leading them home. Home not being the promised land, home being closer and closer to God, to Himself. There's far more to say, but I want to leave you with that image of shaky ground, cultural earthquakes and God tabernacling with his people. What might it look like for you to set up a tent, to invite a few people to draw in a little closer, even if they're not sure of the integrity or the structure of our buildings? God bless you. I look forward to worshiping together this Sunday.